There is typically a hidden agenda when a serial killer commits a murder. Some people kill to complete a mission, while others just enjoy the pure gore of the act. These killers kill without having guilt. A lot of serial killers have bizarre motives and reasons to commit their crimes. Richard Ramirez is one of them, and he stalked unlocked doors and windows at night in the neighborhood. He looked for female victims, but shot the men he encountered who interrupted him. Some people may find it strange, but not all serial killers are men. Women have had a fair share of being psychotic serial killers. One such name is Aileen Wuornos, who had a past filled with robberies, drug abuse, and prostitution. She began murdering the men who approached her for physical benefits. But one thing to know for sure is that the profiles of serial killers don't follow any clear pattern. Everyone knows that a good supporting example for the above statement is the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Leatherface, a character who skins living people and tortures his victims to death, serves as the primary protagonist of the narrative. Though the movie was strongly fictional, the inspiration is not. The movie was inspired by serial killer Ed Gein. In this video, let's talk about similar serial killers that are far worse than him. Number 1. Harold Shipman. He is also known as Dr. Death. At least 218 patients are thought to have died at the hands of Dr. Death, despite the reality saying that the real number is probably closer to 250. Between 1972 and 1998, this doctor worked in 2 different offices while maintaining his London-based practice in killing. He wasn't discovered until several people raised a red flag, including an undertaker who was shocked by the number of cremation certificates Shipman was involved in, and the fact that the majority of the cases involved elderly women who were discovered to have passed away in bed during the day rather than at night. The police botched the investigation and Shipman continued killing until he became avaricious and attempted to rig a will for a victim named him beneficiary, raising suspicions in the victim's daughter. He was ultimately found guilty in 2000. In 2004, he committed suicide in jail. Imagine being a doctor and killing people. Number 2. John Wayne Gacy. John Wayne Gacy was a construction worker who was well-liked by his suburban neighbors. He was a fun person to be with and occasionally performed as a clown at children's birthday parties. In 1978, Gacy was suspected after a 15-year-old boy who had been last seen with him vanished. It wasn't the first time families of missing boys blamed Gacy, but it was the first time that authorities paid attention to them. The smell of nearly 30 bodies buried in a 4-foot crawl space beneath the Gacy residence was there when police were given access to the house thanks to a search warrant. He was put to death by lethal injection in 1994 after being found guilty of 33 counts of murder and additional counts of rape and torture. Number 3. A.J. Holmes. Although Chicago has seen its fair share of murderers, A.J. Holmes, the pharmacist who converted a hotel into a torture facility, is perhaps the eeriest. Before the 1893 World's Fair, Holmes relocated to Chicago and began building a 3-story hotel with a variety of sinister devices, including soundproof padding, gas lines, hidden passages and trapdoors, hallways that led to nowhere, chutes that led to the basement, and torture equipment was strewn throughout a maze. Before the worst of what was to come, the gas allowed Holmes to put his guests to sleep, frequently on his operating tables. He then ran life insurance scams and burned the corpses in the building's furnace before selling the skeletons to medical schools. Before being hanged in 1896, he confessed to more than 30 murders, which were only discovered after a fellow con man reported him for breaking a financial agreement. Number 4. Ted Bundy. Many people in the United States were more than happy to give Ted Bundy the attention he craved due to his murders. His hunting ground was the western United States, where an undetermined number of murders, mostly of college-age women, occurred from Washington and Oregon to Utah and Colorado. After being apprehended and found guilty of kidnapping in Colorado, Bundy fled the country and relocated to Florida, where he continued to commit multiple murders. He got a good amount of popularity, but it was short-lived, as he found himself on death row soon after. Number 5. Pedro Lopez. It's possible that one of the most prolific serial killers in history is still at large. More than 300 homicides in Pedro Lopez's native Colombia and Ecuador and Peru have been connected to him. Tribal women made up at least 1/3 of those murder victims. Police discovered the graves of more than 50 of Lopez's teenage victims after his arrest in 1980. Later, after confessing to 240 additional murders in Colombia and Peru, he was found guilty of killing 110 girls in Ecuador. The monster of the Andes was released in 1998 for good behavior, so he didn't even serve 20 years in prison. His whereabouts have remained a mystery ever since.